So today it is the ds-incubator again covering Git from the terminal, and in particular a topic that is very close to a lot of us heart, which is the idea of solving and avoiding conflicts, and specifically in the context of Git we talk about merge conflicts. So this is a topic that I think Alex already shared very good ideas, and hopefully this will formalize those ideas a little bit. It's meant to be a pretty sweet, short session, so I'm hoping to kind of get through all of it by just skipping a few things and focusing on what's, I think, more useful. So the very first thing I wanted to cover is this idea of what is a merge conflict and how it happens. I think that this figure puts it well. So let's think that in this left-hand side of the figure, we have a file and it has like 3 lines. The first line, has the text that says 2 avocados. The second line, 2 tablespoons of cilantro, and so on. So now let's imagine that, we already discussed branches. So let's think, okay, we create a branch. This one here at the top is one branch. And the exact same file, the file has the same name, but now we add a new line. The first line now is one line, has that text. And the second line, in the second branch, the first line is not touched at all. So if we focus on that specific file, on that specific line, if we merge those 2 branches, in line 1 there should be no conflict because it is a change that was added in one branch and nothing happened on the other. So Git knows, okay, what we want is to simply add a line there. So that's clear, Git can do it for us. Same thing happens on the last line of this branch here at the bottom. So in this branch, we added one line that says half onion, and that line has not been touched at all in that file on the branch represented here at the top of the figure, and therefore Git knows what to do. We just want to add that line. So there is no conflicts between the 2 lines. But here in red, very suggestive, we have a conflict. What we have is that the branch at the top wrote 1 tablespoon of cilantro, and the exact same line in the exact same file, but on a different branch, added a different text, 3 tablespoons of cilantro. So merge does not know by default what we actually want, so which of the 2 branches should kind of win if we ask it to merge, and therefore ask us humans to make a decision. There is automated ways to resolve this conflict, and I'm going to cover that briefly as well. But the more common scenario is where we are confronted with the need to solve this conflict as humans, and maybe to have a conversation between colleagues to see which of the 2 versions we need to accept. Or maybe even a combination of the 2. Sometimes it's a third version. It's not the line that was introduced in branch 1 or the line that was introduced in branch 2, but instead a combination of the 2. So this is kind of the mental model of what is a merge conflict and how it is introduced. This is an important thing that I would like to kind of make a little pause and see if there is anything to extend this notion, or if anyone has a question or comment.
I have a quick question. So one thing that's always been caused me to question what is going on or what I think is going on is, so the first example with one line, this is clear to me, line 1 is changed or not changed. But in this second version where it's below, so whether or not you first add this line at the top and then the line at the bottom, this can change the line that it's on. So I guess in this case you're starting off with kind of a blank first line, but in cases where say there was not a blank line in the beginning and you added this new line, then in the other version where you're adding a line at the bottom, then to me I'm never really 100% sure whether Git knows that's a new line that's not affecting the others, or is it based on line numbers only, or is it more heuristic?
If I can jump in here, Git's differencing engine is actually pretty smart, and it actually looks at the contents of the line rather than anything to do with line numbers or anything. So if you were to take this and then add 50 new lines at the beginning, it would still be like, oh, the two avocados, 2 tablespoons cilantro, 2 teaspoons salt, even if that jumped all the way down to line 70 or whatever, it would recognize that there have been a whole bunch of new insertions at the beginning. A different symptom of this is when you interject multiple new lines sort of next to each other. Sometimes it can, so like, let's say we added a line in between the avocados and cilantro and then another new line in between cilantros and salt. Sometimes it can get confused as to whether you have added 2 new lines or changed one line and changed it into 3 different ones. So the exact nature of the diff algorithm is not, it is smart and it is capable of actually recognizing content, but the exact nature of how it does that is not necessarily going to affect whether or not you get a conflict one way or the other.
Thanks. Alex, to me, that comment did help a lot because, the simplified mental model that I shared in the beginning is too simple. Obviously, that's not explain our experience as CJ highlighted. So thanks for that. Do we have any kind of comment following or question following that up? I feel satisfied with that, but go ahead if you have. We're good. That's great. I guess that my takeaway is that, for example, if I need to add a new line, I shouldn't kind of worry about should I add it at the top of the file or at the bottom of the file, because in terms of merge conflicts, it's not gonna, I guess, make any difference. Is that right, Alex? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay. So now I'm gonna just skip all the way to the end of this lesson to avoid it. To discuss how to avoid merge conflicts, and this should be kind of a summary, I think, of conversations that were led by Alex before. Some of these points here maybe don't resonate too much with me, but I guess that the takeaway, I'm gonna kind of mention some things. If you want to, as I speak, read through these and highlight something that kind of resonates with you, go ahead. I think that it is useful to kind of plan a little bit your strategy, like in general. It is not the same to merge, any two branches. If one branch, for example, recently I kind of noticed that in one particular repository we have some branches that are kind of out of sync with the master branch. So I recommended that we try to update those branches to have the latest changes. And thus, the new version of those branches wouldn't have too many differences accumulated, which increases, of course, the chances of merge conflict. So how you plan your strategy, how you develop your workflow around branches, I think it is important avoiding merge conflicts. Which also relates to this. So if the 2 branches are going to be merged, have too many unrelated changes, then the chances, of course, increase of merge conflicts. The idea, I think, that was discussed in different forms. The idea that we kind of use a lot the phrase HTTP pull request should be small. What we and in other cases we refer to, I think that's what Alex said, that okay, the size of the PR is more not so much about how many lines, but the idea is related to one thing, and if that one thing is a unit that does not clash with any other one thing that someone else is doing, then we should avoid that. That should kind of avoid merge conflicts. Although maybe 2 different tasks do touch the same files, it can happen, but I guess that trying to work around the idea of just one thing, one task should help. In terms of collaboration, having conversations between colleagues, if we know that we're working on the same repository, maybe we can organize so that where one person is working on one file, the other person is working on a different file. That shouldn't cause any merge conflict at all. So the idea of breaking down files in reasonable units that make sense for that project helps a lot too. In terms of semantic conflict, that's an interesting one that I hadn't considered, but it's an interesting thing maybe to reflect about. I won't spend too much time on this, but maybe the idea that sometimes there are conflicts in the project. I think we discussed this with CJ recently. Sometimes there are requirements in the project that are at conflict, and those conflicts are not exposed sometimes by the tools. Tests are pretty good at that. Sometimes if you express every requirement in the form of a test, sometimes you do get tests to fail because of a conflicting requirement, and then you can have a conversation saying, hey, look, 1 week ago we discussed that this object should be a data frame, and thus I wrote a test that checks that it is a data frame, but today you're asking me to make it a list, and therefore it is a conflict here. The two tests cannot pass. It cannot be a data frame. Well, maybe a list, yes, because a data frame is a particular case of a list. But I think you get the idea that sometimes there are conflicts that may not be catched by the tool, are more like about the meaning, and that's an interesting thing to kind of reflect about. Other things that I notice, maybe I don't have very good examples about how this could happen, but the idea of modifying global data can cause conflicts. I guess that the idea of any change that we do, if it has a scope that is an entire project, like anywhere else there could be a conflict. Not very sure how that would reflect to merge conflicts, but there could be conflicts. Basically, you're changing something that you don't know what's going to be the impact because the scope is too large to see in just one screen of your computer. The idea that breaking down files, that I mentioned that before, if you have just a one monolithic project that has one gigantic file, everyone is going to be working in the same file. So of course, that increases the chances of conflicts. And that's the opposite of that, could be to break up the project into any module that makes kind of sense. Sometimes those modules are independent enough that can have a life of their own, and they can live in different repositories. Technical measures, I think this one is one that we have discussed, the idea of, okay, once you're done with something, if your thing is small, if that's one thing, you should be done fairly quickly. I think Alex suggested less than a week or less than a few days. If that's the case, you could be pushing your finished pull request early and often, and that should minimize merge conflicts. Remember to keep even if you're not doing that, remember to keep updating your local branches with the changes from your upstream repositories, and just confront the fact that if there is merge conflicts, just face them as early as you can, because they are just gonna get worse with time. Right. So the one thing, maybe some time here to extend what we see here, or ask questions.
I have a question that's not totally related to what you're talking about. What does rebase do exactly, or is it covered in some other incubator that you can lead me to?
Yes, I know. Well, last incubator we talked about the second half of branching, so when you branching and merging, and rebase is a different flavor of merging histories, except that it changes the history of the repository. So basically, I don't think you were here, so I'm going to be brief in this, and you can review last incubator. Basically, a merge has two parents and a merge commit. Sometimes the merge commit doesn't exist if Git identifies that it can do a fast forward, which is, okay, I'm going to move these changes to the top of the latest commit. But you can also force that with a rebase. Sometimes even if Git is not able to do a fast forward, you can tell Git, every commit that I have in this branch, do not attempt to merge it. Instead, just cut it from the trunk and stick it at the top. And that will change all the identifiers of every commit. So all the SHAs of each commit will change, meaning that the history of your repository will be different. And that's totally okay if you're working locally. It is not okay if you have already pushed that branch and start sharing with the world. It's too much, and I know this is that if this doesn't make sense, we can talk about rebasing later. But in my head, the way I think of it is, you have a car, you're behind a car. When you rebase, you just go, you pass them and go to the top. That's how it looks, the tree of a Git repository once you have rebased. Instead of having something that stems out of a trunk, what you have is just a common line going up. It's just one kind of way to incorporate what's happening in one branch into the main trunk, or into any other branch. Yeah.
So basically, if I would work locally and I have some local commits, and then I also pull from the upstream master.
Mm-hmm.
And if I, for example, don't want this merge from upstream to be visible in my pull request,
mm-hmm.
would I then do rebase so that I'm kind of at the most recent master, and then only my personal commits are visible? Would it work like that?
It will certainly change the topography of your Git repository. And what you say when you I think what you mean when you say I wouldn't see the merge commit is true. I mean, a rebase will not produce a merge commit. There's not going to be a commit that has two parents. So a merge commit is very special in that it has two parents as opposed to just one. And aesthetically, it may not be very pleasant to see that kind of bifurcation and then that merge commit. But it is actually the one that preserves the most the history of the repository. So some teams decide to actually always use merge commits. Other teams decide to accept rebases. And in any case, you can have a workflow where on pull requests you can have merge commits or rebases, whatever you want. But then when you merge a pull request into your source repository, you squash every commit. And thus, even if you have a merge commit in the pull request, that will kind of disappear. There will be no evidence on that on the final merge squashed commit. Maybe someone else here with more knowledge of Git could complement if I kind of had a little bit of a gap in my mental model. Yeah. It is a bit of a hard thing to digest in 2 minutes, so hopefully with that, you more or less understand what's going on, but I'm very happy to point you to other incubators, so we can chat about that.
Okay.
So the one thing that you can do when you are still not ready to merge conflicts because you want to talk to your colleagues or whatever is just to git merge abort. And that is kind of the obvious thing to do if the command that you are running is git merge. But the one thing that I wanted to say that is not written in this lesson is that some commands like pull do a git fetch first and then a merge. So it might be not very intuitive to know that if the last command that you ran on Git was git pull, and if you have merge conflicts, maybe it's not very intuitive to know that, what I need to do if I want to abort is git merge abort. So why merge if I was actually pulling? Well, if you read the documentation of git pull, it is exactly git fetch followed by git merge. So that's the one thing that may be a little tricky. But in general, when you are on a merge conflict, just merge abort will kind of go back to where you were, and then you can think what you want to do. But the idea of what follows in this lesson is that of explaining how it looks to solve a very simple merge conflict so that you don't fear them. I mean, merge conflicts are a natural part of working with Git. And at least in this kind of toy example, I'm hoping to illustrate, how we introduce them, how we can fix them in two ways. One that is manual and one that is automated, if you know which of the two lines of development should win over the other. So we're going to get into a little bit of coding here. Do we have any question or comment before I get into that?
I wanted to make one comment on the possible ways to avoid merge conflicts, because I felt like that list was not very precise or definitive or specific. So one thing is, if you're working on different files, then it's very easy to avoid merge conflicts. And this is something that can be achieved, one, by planning not to do that, but also if you do a kind of good thing in terms of separating the large source code files into smaller chunks, then it becomes a lot easier for someone to work on one file while someone else is working on another file. And that's, maybe that's a very simplistic thing, but I think it's maybe relevant in a lot of cases. For us, if we break the files into more precisely what they're actually working on, they're only max 200 lines of code, then it's very easy for Jacob to work on something that's working on that one file and me working on something completely different. So I think that's maybe one simple way that we could easily try to avoid some of these.
I think I'd like to follow up there that merge conflicts are not, they are not the problem in and of itself. They are a very technical symptom of a bigger problem that is not communicating in a project about who is doing what and where things connect to each other. So I think if you find yourself getting some merge conflicts, that is fine, those can be resolved. But if you find yourself getting a lot of merge conflicts, the question then becomes, why are we getting them? And I think another big thing that is involved in merge conflicts is, what is the group's strategy to resolve them? And more importantly, who resolves a merge conflict? I have always worked at a place that whoever is making the pull request, they have to solve the merge conflict. It is not, and if they don't resolve the merge conflict, then nobody else will do it for them.
Thanks, Alex. I think it makes sense. That encourages the idea of kind of keep all the time as much as you can up to in sync with what's happening in the master branch or in the main branch, whatever is the main line of development. Just all the time, keep in sync. So have about 7 minutes. I'll see if I can cover all that. But the idea now is to create a merge conflict. As what I'm showing you here is that I'm standing on the master branch of this project, and I'm going to be working on this file called ingredients. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to edit this first line in two different ways. Oops, I think probably because I waited too much before opening this session. I'm gonna refresh this. So continue with the explanation. So basically, I'm going to be working on two different branches. I'm going to do conflicting changes to that branch. Let's go back to home. And then I'm going to try merge one at a time on master, basically simulating the scenario by which two collaborators are working on a project, and they do something that kind of conflicts with each other. So let's review Git branch. Yes, I am on master. So that's the only branch that I have. So let's create one branch that is called like cilantro. And in this branch, I'm going to edit this as more cilantro. I'm gonna save this file and do git status just to show you that in fact I have edited that file. I could do a git diff as well. You see that what the change that I did is I added more cilantro. So let's do git add ingredients.txt, git commit with the message more, and done. So now let's go back to master. Actually, sorry, I think I was wrong. I think I did the change in master. In fact, I am in master, so what I'm gonna do, like cilantro, so you see me kind of debugging my own problem. What I'm gonna do is a pattern that we covered before. I'm very used to doing git checkout -b, which is a command that creates the branch and checks it out at the same time. So now I'm in the branch like cilantro, I'm gonna do, I don't know if we cover this command, I'm gonna just cherry pick one particular commit from the master branch, from the master, right? So if I now show you the log, just one line, maybe graph and decorate. What we should see is I'm now here on cilantro, and the reason why we don't see master is because I didn't add the flag all. Here you are. So what I want to do actually is revert master. I'm just fixing the problem that I did before. I didn't want master to move. I want to move master to this commit here. So what I'm gonna do is git branch master. I'm gonna put it on this commit and I'm gonna force it. So if I do now the log one time again, this is what the scenario I wanted to show. So now my branch like cilantro is one commit ahead of master, right? And it added more cilantro. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna git checkout master. And from here, I'm going to check out a new branch that is called dislike cilantro. And this time I'm going to use the flag -b so that I create the branch and check it out at the same time so I don't commit the same mistake that I did before. So dislike cilantro. And here, I'm gonna this time confirm that I'm on that branch. So one thing that I totally recommend is to always change your command line prompt to include the branch in which you are standing, which is something that I do in my local environment, but not here. I didn't do that here in this RStudio project that I'm showing you. So in this new branch, dislike cilantro, I'm gonna add a change in the different direction. I'm gonna say half cilantro, and I'm gonna commit that. So this time I'm gonna just do git commit -m. If you remember the command commit, if you give it the name of the file, it does the equivalent to commit and add as well. It adds and commits that specific file. So with this, I'm gonna show you again the log, what it looks like. So here you see how my master branch is one commit behind these two branches. Each of these two branches are branching off master. Each of them has a change, but those changes are in conflict. That conflict will not show up if I check out master first. If I merge one of them, say git merge like cilantro, that's fine. I mean, there is no conflict between master and that branch, so the change should just happen. That's the situation I'm now. So now in this commit, I have two branches pointing to it. Master has moved to the same position where like cilantro is because those two branches are now kind of merged, right? But what happens if I now merge the other one? From here, if I do git merge this like cilantro, now I see a merge conflict. How do I explore the merge conflict? Well, this file will update in a moment. Maybe I think it's there you go. So update it to show what the conflict is. But sometimes it's not so obvious. So what you can do is just a git diff, and that will show, among the changes that merge introduced, you should see very explicitly which is the file with the conflict and, basically what is the problem. So the manual solution of that, I think most of us sometimes face something like this. The solution is, okay, decide, talk to your team if you want this line, or a combination of the two. So say that I prefer more cilantro, we decide that this is the way to go. So all I need to do is just remove the markers and leave the line that I want. But I also have the opportunity to say something completely different to what I said before. I save the file, and the way you mark the merge conflict is solved is with git add ingredients. Now you can do a git status to see that there is no more merge conflict. If I do git diff, I could confirm that my diff, let me clear this up. The git diff now shows no difference. If I do git diff cache to see what I have already in the staging area, what you see is that the change between what was the file in master branch right before the merge, and now that I have fixed the merge conflict. So let's confirm this, actually complete the commit. So git commit with the message fix merge conflict manually. And let's do this in the file ingredients. Cannot commit. Let's see. Git commit. What am I missing here? Can anyone see? Fix conflict. There you go, I think. Okay, it worked. For some reason, it didn't like during the merge conflict for me to add the specific file. That's something that I don't have a lot to say about. So that's the solution for the merge conflict manually. Hopefully that isn't strange for many of you. And very quickly, I know I'm a bit beyond, so I'm going to do this very quickly. So what I'm going to do is, this shouldn't, it's not something that we cover in the lesson. I'm going to go back to the point in the history of this commit where I had merged just one branch. So let's see the log. Oh. There you go. Okay, so I'm in this situation that I was before, where what I did with the ref log is something you don't need to know in this lesson, but basically I went back to the to the Git repo as I had it before the last merge, and now I'm gonna merge with a different strategy. I'm gonna say git merge using the flag -x hours tells that the branch hours means the branch I'm standing right now that should win over the changes of the other branch that I'm going to mention now, which is this like cilantro. This means that if there is any conflict, the changes in the branch that I'm standing right now is going to override the changes in the other branch. So if I run that command, I am just exposed to the interface to accept the merge solution, to the merge commit, which I accept. And as you can see, the merge has been made and the file has been saved with the change that was in the branch that I accepted to override the other one. Maybe just for a final demonstration, let me show you the log. As you can see, there is a merge commit here, and I wasn't exposed to the interface to fix the merge conflict manually because I explicitly said which branch should win. That was really fast, and the information is there on the lesson. So if you want to read it slowly, go ahead and do that. In any case, it's very rare that we could do this kind of automatic solution. More commonly, we could do it manually. I've seen a lot of comments in the chat. Could anyone summarize them? Because I didn't have the time to kind of present and read them at the same time.
Daisy was just asking about different ways of using git diff, basically, and if it only works with differences between master or if you can specify other stuff.
Perfect. I think you learned a lot about that recently. Jackson, did you share your thoughts?
I did. I have way more thoughts to share as well, but git diff is super powerful.
Yeah. Okay, any parting comment before we leave, because I'm late? I'm sorry for that. Yeah. Okay, don't be afraid of merge conflicts. It's part of some of them. I really like the way Alex put it. Some of them are just part of Git life. If you find yourself fixing merge conflicts every time you want to merge something, that means probably that we need to kind of revise how we work together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mauro.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye. Thanks, bye.
Bye-bye.